Here's David Ciccolini from Rhode Island asking Bill Barr if it's okay to tear gas peaceful protesters. Want to guess on what Bill Barr says? Here is that clip.
Ever appropriate, Mr. Barr, for officers to use force against peaceful protesters? Yes or no?
Not against peaceful protesters.
So you also don't mention in your statement today or your testimony that federal officers have even tear-gassed elected representatives. County Commissioner Sharon Myron confirmed firsthand, last night I was tear-gassed by a federal occupying force. I saw throw canisters of poison without warning into a nonviolent crowd, including elders and the vulnerable. And on July 23rd, the mayor, Ted Wheeler, was tear-gassed. He called the tactics of the officers abhorrent. These are elected representatives with grave concerns that officers are using abhorrent tactics, including tear-gassing elderly, nonviolent Americans. So let me ask you, sir, do you think it's ever appropriate to use tear gas on peaceful protesters? Yes or no?
Well, the problem in these things sometimes occur because it's hard to separate people who...
Mr. Barr, my question is very specific. Do you think it is ever appropriate to use tear gas on peaceful protesters?
It is,
yes or no?
It is appropriate to use tear gas when it's indicated to disperse...
On peaceful protesters?
To disperse an unlawful assembly, and sometimes, unfortunately, peaceful protesters are affected by
it. Now, how much...
You know, he's trying to split the hairs here a little bit. An unlawful assembly, as he calls it, still can be peaceful. All those people can be perfectly peaceful. And they did that, and they do it without warning. They're doing it without warning. They're dropping tear gas in there. I mean, he's doing his best, Bill Barr, split the difference there.
Yeah. I mean, I also want to caution folks against the good protester, bad protester dichotomy, right? Because guess what? Nobody deserves to be tear gassed. Period. End of story.
I agree with that. I think, you know, from the sake of like what they're trying to do in this hearing, which is, you know, they're not going to get anywhere with Bill Barr other than they're going to basically try and prevent the administration, which appeared, at least at the beginning of this week, to want to use these protests as, and he's been trying to do this for a while, right? The law and order president, he's trying to use these protests as a cudgel in the election, a la Richard Nixon. But again, the problem is Nixon at the time was not president. It was a very different era. The perception of the protest was very different. Frankly, white people in many respects have gotten better. I'm not saying dramatically, but have gotten better on these things. And I don't think it's going to be as effective, but it certainly inhibits their ability to do this when they are, you know, look, I don't think there's any difference between a mom and a dad in this respect. But the fact is that a lot of people will respond. You get a bunch of moms out there and they get, you can ask the moms when they get tear gassed, there's more sympathy for moms, and just the optics of this make it bad for them. But yes,
well, there's also the cops are also kind of making a distinction between those protests, and they're actually using force on the peaceful protesters while blocks away there are people actually doing significant property damage that they're allowing because they like it for the property damage and for the propaganda value of it.
I don't know if that's true. I think the cops are primarily there to protect private property. And we saw it in New York, right? When the cops were all protecting the Gucci store or whatever, and a bunch of peaceful protests around the city went down totally unmolested.
The opposite also happened, though, early on in the
that
protest.
happened. I think early on, that was like 2 or 3 days into it. The first couple of days, they were basically doing the exact opposite, as far as I could tell.
Curious. But back to this as a political tactic, it's also not going to work because Joe Biden, like we were talking about the other day, nobody thinks Joe Biden is anti-law and order. Nobody thinks he wants to defund the police or, really take away their power in any way. And in fact, he just released a statement saying that anarchists should be prosecuted, which doesn't make me feel great.
In this country, we don't really do that with people based on their political beliefs.
Has a bad lineage, definitely.
Exactly.
I remember, and this is in the Obama years, when the police raided a bunch of anarchists' homes, including some that I was friends with, looking for literature, rounded people up and took them in if they had like an open container warrant on them. So more of that to look forward to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. We should be so lucky that Joe Biden is the guy that Donald Trump claims he is. That'd be nice.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out why they think that this is an effective campaign strategy when they're in charge. Is it just to make it look like if a Democrat is in charge, it will end up looking like this across the country?
Yeah, I think that is. And it's just not working. I mean, that's the thing is I think
because that's just in their head. That's what they think. Like, when it's out here in the real world.
I think that's exactly right. I think that they don't understand how people are receiving this stuff. I think they live in as much of a bubble as as Dave Rubin, when he's tweeting, like, I can feel a real change going on in the world. Remember he used to do that like a couple of years ago? Dave Rubin was like on this kick where he's like, every day he was in the run up to 2018, like there's a turning point.
It's all happening.
It's all happening. Like I can see people leaving the Democratic Party, like on the eve of the biggest off-year election victory by Democrats in any of our lifetimes. He was really sensing what was going on. Here is Ciccolini again, Democrat from Rhode Island, in the House Judiciary Committee, talking to Bill Barr about the clip of that Navy vet, Christopher David, being beaten and tear gassed. And again, this goes to Jamie's point on some level. There's no reason why a vet getting beaten should be any more problematic than anyone else getting beaten. But sometimes you go with the existing biases you have rather than, and the video is compelling. And that's it. And here's Bill Barr. Sort of, things happen.
Video evidence as well. I'm going to ask you to look at this video. Just so you know,
this is the video that's capturing the nation's attention this weekend, shot by Tribune reporter.
That video is of Christopher David, a Navy veteran, being beaten and tear gassed by the officers. Do you think that was appropriate?
Well, I didn't see him tear gas. Seems to be gas in the area. I don't know what kind of gas it was, and I don't know whether it was directed at him.
Do you think what happened to Mr. David was appropriate, Mr. Barr?
Pause it for 1 second. Pause it for 1 second. Now, to be fair to Bill Barr, Ciccolini did not play the rest of the video where they came up and they sprayed. I mean, the guy was sprayed.
Oh, they sprayed him right in the face in the clip, I thought.
Maybe that was the Vietnam vet that was sprayed in the face the other day.
Yeah, he got hit in the face.
Oh, wait, no, they did spray him right in the face.
Here, look.
Right after that. Yeah, right after that, they sprayed him in the face. Now, Ciccolini should have played it longer, but go ahead.
I mean, I thought it.
This is the video that's capturing
they cut away. Yeah, oh, there he is. He sprayed right in the face. Yeah.
That video is of Christopher David.
Go ahead.
I didn't see it, though.
Why, it was very quick. Could you slow that down? Go ahead.
Do you think what happened to Mr. David was appropriate, Mr. Barr?
The Inspector General's reviewing that particular
Well,
incident.
do you think he deserved to get pepper sprayed and beaten to the point of broken bones?
As I say, the Inspector General is going to review the incident.
So as the top law enforcement official in our country, do you think Americans who show up to peacefully protest should expect to be beaten and pepper sprayed and have their bones broken by federal officers?
Well, I don't think that what was happening immediately around the courthouse was a peaceful protest.
That's not my question, Mr. Barr.
Well, that's where that...
My question is, do you think as the chief reclaiming my time. Reclaiming my time, Mr. Barr. My question is, do you think, as the top law enforcement official in this country, that Americans who show up to peacefully protest should expect to be beaten, pepper sprayed, and have their bones broken by federal officials? Yes or no?
I don't think peaceful protesters should face that.
And that's correct. And isn't protecting the First Amendment freedom of Americans at least as important as protecting a building from vandalism?
I think
we've fought for. I've not posed a question. We've fought for a democracy, for the right to speak freely, and you are attempting to take that away. And what's worse, you're doing it for the sole purpose of furthering the president's political agenda and generating footage for Trump campaign commercials. The Justice Department is responsible for protecting the constitutional rights of Americans, not to serve as the president's personal bully or political director. And speaking of protesters, it's worth remembering every suffragette, every person who marched to end child labor, every abolitionist who demanded an end to slavery was a protester. The revolutionaries who transformed us from colonists into a nation were protesters. Protesters aren't chaos. They're deeply American examples of values.
I mean, every time I see that video, I'm also just struck by like the guy's ability to get hit with a huge wooden baton and seemingly like not flinch. And he broke his hand because he had his hand down by his waist.
That guy's a total badass. I encourage everyone to watch until the end where he flips the cops the bird.
Yeah, with his broken
hand. Yeah, exactly. Like I see this and I think that they could have done better with some of this stuff, frankly. I mean, but Barr is slippery and these guys are just not the best questioners. But that line of attack, I mean, these are effective, at least I think from an electoral standpoint. I don't know if it's going to move, 1 vote or 10 votes or 50 votes, but I would much prefer to see some actually genuine oversight that is not maybe as sexy, but the Democrats, at least the leadership, seems to be completely allergic to the idea of being seen as being petty, as in like making sure that government is functioning the way it's supposed to be. Let's go.
People will even watch that. I just think like, okay, maybe that argument works on the don't harass Trump thing, but are they going to care that the Democrats are harassing Barr? Like in any sense?
Well, that's what I think. It's like, like Nancy Pelosi has this thing in her head where she thinks like, we don't want to be said that we're spending all our time in, in hearings, because we know how much Benghazi hurt the Republicans. All it did was get them the Senate and the House and the presidency. Right? I mean, they had 7 Benghazi hearings, 8 Benghazi hearings.
You don't want to be seen to be doing hearings at a historical moment. You should probably doing a lot of hearings.
It's insanity. It really is insanity, I think.